means a lot. You could be amongst hostile white environment. You would think you can rely on an African. They would betray you based on their tribe. They'll probably help the white people take you down. And generally, this African is very religious. If they are Muslim, they are super Muslim. If they're Christian, nobody beats them at church. An African would sit and argue why it is justified for white policemen to shoot and kill a black person. African would always separate themselves from black people. And I know some people didn't
Stamina Beats. Purchase your track today. Purchase your track today. Stamina Beats.
Why didn't you pay for this beat, though?
Yeah, the beat was tough. That beat was tough. Peace, 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 people. Happy Friday. Today, I almost took today off. I almost took it off. And lo and behold, I found an older video of Afridamus. And I began listening to part of it. And it just drew me to conclude that when he first came to YouTube, he was being more transparent and more honest about Africans. And since then, he's gotten away from being as truthful. He's gotten away of letting Africans camouflage themselves in disguises and, you know, oh, we're global. We can go wherever we want to go. We can do whatever we want to do. It's now his sentiment about what Africans are able to do everywhere in the continent. And obviously, there's a big issue with migration. Mainly, a lot of places in Africa is overpopulated. It is not ran very well in the countries that have all these resources, all these possibilities, endless. And they can't seem to get their shit together. But again, the conversations always seems to circularly go around what Black Americans can do for Africa. It's scapegoating us, it's gaslighting us, it's bashing us, it's doing all the things that our country has always done to us previous to, and everybody seems to use the same tactic that they learned from what white supremacists and white racists have done, as far as always keeping us as a controversial topic, keeping us in the hearts and minds of disdain of many people globally. This has been done through the media. It's been done through movies and other ways of artistry, I guess you could say. Today, we want to talk a little bit more about what Africans' plight is about. I think it's interesting that many Africans don't really talk too much about their plights, except for Kanzaran Empire. Shout out to him. He does indeed talk about different topics relating to Africa, but he is primarily the only one. Every now and again, Afridamus will throw a bone and talk about Africa too. When he's done, gnawing at us, Black Americans, he'll throw a bone in and talk about Africa and situations related to Africa. But as I state, he was more honest when he first came on to the platform. And then when he grew with influence and other Africans were looking up to him, then he seemed to change and shift and pivot from his opinions and from what he states, what Africans need to be more about. And we'll get into that a little bit later because I want to let more people join the live. I know I started a little bit earlier than I usually do, but I wanted to make sure that while I had it on my mind to do this live, I just go ahead and get up and do it. So let's start off a little bit about understanding why Africa is in a big disarray of a pickle. There's many reasons for it, but I think that this guy, Brian, from what I have heard thus far, I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Let me see. Kagoro, Brian Kagoro, I think it is. He has a way of describing Africa as being a recycling thieves and educated illiterates. I only listened to the first 3 minutes of it, but I'm interested in what else he had to say because I do know that there are all these educated fools. There's plenty educated fools that are Africans that I can say, not all, but there are seemingly a lot of them that think because they have knowledge of other languages and they can, speak this and they can, go to this side of the country or side of the world, that somehow that makes them superior to us as Black Americans. That's the first thing they throw up in our faces. And you can know more, but if you don't have common sense or logic, if you don't have good intentions or the right outcome of thought or intention of thought, it doesn't really make or will end up being as positive as one would guess it to be. Even if you have all the education, even if you have this and that and the other, it depends on how you put stuff together. It depends on what route you take in trying to accomplish the goals that you may have. And most people that are very cutthroat or don't think about other people will, again, be tribalistic in Africa. We see that time and time again. And they have more than enough money, like Tinubu in Nigeria. He's a billionaire. And yet, how can his people possibly be starving over there in Nigeria, for instance? I think about the mentality of Africans because, again, a lot of them are talking to us as if they are our best friends suddenly. And I do know that most of them don't have good intentions for us. They just don't. And I'm not sugarcoating anything. I realize that a lot of people might perceive what I say and how I say it as being kind of aggressive or blunt, outspoken, or whatever like that. But we really don't have time to play around anymore, because things are heating up and getting really serious. And when we have the likes of Eric coming for our money and targeting us specifically, we need to understand the mindset of Africans better. I need to show my people their mindset so we understand why we think the way we think, and we have validation and justification to think the way in which we need to think to survive and stay above the lies, stay above the manipulation and the trickery. So this is why I'm doing this video today, to showcase Africans speak out about African affairs. They should be the ones speaking out about their affairs. It shouldn't really be Black Americans solely speaking about their affairs, because we're not African. No matter how people would like to make us over and remix us, they weren't having this conversation just 10, 20 years ago. So I don't understand why you're having this conversation now, in my opinion. We are American, and that is, again, going to be a continued back and forth. Yes, we may have ancestry that's from Africa, but we have ancestry in America too. We may have ancestry in Europe as well. So what? We're still American, and that is the most important thing and theme that I think that Americans that are Black should honor, in my opinion, for your survival, for your birthright, for what your ancestors have done for you in America. No other people did these things for you but your own ancestors. So stop putting other peoples on pedestals that have never done nothing for you. That does not make sense. So this is why I want to showcase the plight of Africans, so that we can come back down to earth. We can see things more common sense wise and logically, and we can stop worshiping people that don't deserve to be worshiped. Only God needs to be worshiped, period.
We have equated having things with being, so that those who have things are considered more human beings. They are not arrested, they are not harassed because they have things. They have Lamborghinis, they have Porsche Cayennes, they have big houses. So every single person now wants to have things. And the best way to get things is either you get miracle money in church, you go to the occult, or you steal. Natif. I'm a king. We are selling air. We've been telling young people, go to school, get educated, then you'll get a good job, you'll be empowered. But in most of our countries, the people who are living the best lives have no education. The people who are driving the best cars, no education. We've built a culture where we are telling everybody else to comply with governance processes and the instrumental and intrinsic value of governance institutions. And yet those who break the law, either because they are so high up in government, they're untouchable. So high up in the military, they're untouchable. So high up in the police, they're untouchable. They, their children, their cronies, their girlfriends, and their cats seem to live with impunity. And the only people who live subjected to the reformed governance systems and laws are poor people who will never break through the glass ceiling of deified, sanctified, and elevated.
Just think about that. Only the poor people in Africa are subjected to the types of things that's going on in Africa overall. Everybody else has their own enclave of utopia. Their own reality does not measure up to the realities of the common folks of Africa. And that can be said for many, if not all, countries of Africa. That's how they roll. The common people are suffering. And the people that's in government or other higher positions, as he states, are seeming to be untouchable. They seem to have immunities that other folks could never, ever realize, and that their state of affairs and their reality is so far removed from the common folks And he's just saying, you know, those people that are in power are not necessarily educated like that, but they are the ones that's holding all the power. They're the ones that's making all the rules, and they're the ones that's breaking all the rules too. And they're living however they see fit. And because they have the position, they have money, they have influence, they could do whatever they want to do and however they want to be. But it does trickle down and affect negatively the common folks of Africa. And that's why for a very long time it's going to be hard to change, because most people have a corrupt spirit along with their mind. They are corrupted through and through. And these people that have been in power for umpteen years are not willing to give up that power because, hey, they've been having it all this time. Why walk away from power?
How do you deal with the fact that in some of our countries, we've governed the people so badly that citizens are by nature bandits and hostile to the state, even the things that the state does that is good for them? We have political cadres now occupying significant positions in government because they are loyal. Some of them are fantastically incompetent, but they are wonderful people. Unfortunately, wonderfulness does not cure the underdevelopment challenge or the ability of external forces to hijack our governance. The middle class is the worst enemy of governance reforms. In most instances, when our institutions are beginning to fail, the middle class takes an escapist attitude. The middle class, electricity is not being provided. We buy generators and solar power. We don't even hold to account those who collect taxes to make sure we have electricity. When security is not working, we hire private security firms. We are no longer interested in the police. Everything that the middle class does is to delegitimize the state when we are legitimating our comforts. The fact that we have lost faith in the state is what enables the big gulf between the top, the middle, and the bottom. We're recycling thieving elites who are living half the time out in Europe, investing everything they were stealing out in Europe. Now, the problem we had was, we tell these young people, you have to be law-abiding. There will not be peace and security. Based on this lie, that others have a right to eat, and the rest have a right to silence. Right? Silence. Eating is in progress. Oh, silence. And then you then come to some of the elites, you say, but the things happening in your country, what do you think about them? And they say, hey, Aki, it's bad manners to talk whilst you're eating. So they are silent, observing table manners. We have equated having things with being, so that those who have things are considered more human beings. They are not arrested, they are not harassed because they have things. They have Lamborghinis, they have Porsche Cayennes, they have big houses. So every single person now wants to have things. And the best way to get things is either you get miracle money in church, you go to the occult, or you steal. Natif. So what we have done is created an industry of co-conspirators, right from the top of government, the top of mosque and church, to the bottom of society. Those who are deemed as the role models, those that are deemed as the philanthropists, are in essence criminals who masquerade.
That's exactly my point of Ericana with all her awards. And there's plenty other people that win peace treaties. They win other awards for Person of the Year, made up awards, who knows? But it does not mean that you are a person that is righteous. That does not mean that you are a good person either. That just means that some of your cronies decided to make you Person of the Year. And that's what they've been doing. Now, I want to start, I'll go back to him in a little bit. Again, that is called Africa is Recycling Thieves and Educated Illiterates by Brian Kagoro. I want to start now, Afridamus. what he had to say. I found an older video of him. I was looking around YouTube, and of course there's a whole lot of discussion about identity involving around Black Americans. And so I just put in, the topics that really are always talking about us. And then I just happened to find this older video, Afridamus. And yeah, I prefer this Afridamus 5 years ago because he was definitely spilling the beans. And I just wanted to let it be known that sometimes Africans will tell the truth, but I believe that it's not a benefit of them to be as honest as, I would hope that they would be, because again, they feel like they need to survive. However, they needed to survive. They need to do whatever they need to do to get by. Like Esther had said, as far as all these green card scams, romance scams, all this other scamming, the mindset of getting over, the mindset of helping your people out survive a little bit longer, it's deeply embedded into the mind and spirit of many Africans. And I wish that they would have more discussions about themselves. Again, it's fun for them to always scapegoat us. It's become kind of like a sport of sorts. But it would be very, I think, uplifting and cleansing, and more Africans would just come out and stop lying. So I hope that you guys will start getting the message and joining the festivities of telling the truth. What's up, Joyce Boggs? Thank you for coming through. Thanks for letting me listen to your guidance, Chris. I'm not really trying to guide anybody. I'm just trying to show my audience what the Africans sometimes, when they're being very transparent, will sound like. And one such guy is Afridamus. Afridamus now is a bigger YouTuber, well, influencer, I guess you could say. And he has a lot of people believing in a whole lot of rhetoric that he'd be spinning on his platform. But I found an older video of him before all his shining followers came along. He was talking from his heart. And this is what I want us to see. When Africans are being transparent and honest, this is how they'll look and this is how they'll sound.
First, in Africa, we hide behind religion. An African hides behind religion. A Black person, being Black is a mental thing. You accept truth. You face truth. You have pride in yourself. You take the time to be aware of yourself and your surrounding. But be honest. How many Africans do you know that would take the time to know themselves? How many? Like to purposely know themselves.
I'm going to play that again. Go ahead, Chris, and let me see what you got to say. I'm going to start this over again for people to hear what Afridamus just said. You said, forgive me for misspeaking, sister. May I get advice if you're willing to interrupt your flow? Depends if you're not trolling, and I hope you're not. But go ahead. I'll give you 30 seconds to say something before I start this over again. Again, this video of Afridamus is 5 years old, I believe. Let me check to make sure. Well, 2019. And he's saying, are Black Americans trying to blame other Black immigrants for their shortcomings as part of the description? But it's labeled, are Black Americans denying their African roots? Which I feel most of us just don't care about African roots like that. We never have. So since there's a new movement claiming we ought to care about those roots, we never had it in us to care. So you can't miss something that's never been activated in you to care about. You know, it's a little bit too late. The ship has sailed. I'm still waiting, Chris, and you haven't said anything. Anyways, I'm going to go back and let Afridamus start up again because, okay, I'm lost contact with my first love and can't even see her. Is it worth investing in trying to a new relationship? Oh, Lord. Your first love, if you lost contact and you can't get contact, obviously you already got the answer. You can't do nothing that you can't deal with. So it's definitely time to move on. Anyways, going back to this, let's listen to Afridamus.
First, in Africa, we hide behind religion. An African hides behind religion. A black person, being black is a mental thing. You accept truth. You face truth. You have pride in yourself. You take the time to be aware of yourself and your surrounding. But be honest. How many Africans do you know that would take the time to know themselves? How many? Like to purposely know themselves. Obviously, if we were doing that, it would have manifested itself in our environment. And how things are ran. But we don't do that. Instead, we pass this on to so-called religion. And these religions are foreign religions, by the way. It's easier to hide our deceptive behaviors, our cruel behaviors. Sometimes, like, I don't even want to use this word, but I have to. The subhuman way of thinking. Because an African is somebody who, a black person is an African that evolved. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be in a certain geographical location. No. How many black people, how many Africans have you met, let's say in the Western world? You talk about racism that is staring you dead in the eye, and they would deny racism. Because
and that's interesting how he says that then, because there's been shows where he's been alluding that racism is a figment of imagination, or he's had people on his show that would say stupid stuff like that, as if it's all a fact, exaggeration that we as Black Americans make up, that a lot of things could be not really as bad as it is because we have made it worse off than it would be if we would carry ourselves in such a way that would not allow or disallow the mistreatment of police. Again, they always find ways of trying to critique Black Americans about situations that come up. But again, when those situations come up to Africans, then they get really silent. They don't really speak up no more about the killings of Africans, because there have been some that have happened also in America as well. Not as much as of late, but it can happen, and it does happen. Racism is real in America. It has been real for a long time. Not all are racist, but the system that's in place, the profiling is a real reality. People assume the worst about Black people first before assuming that they're innocent and not guilty of something. The attitudes, the dispositions of different people that interact with Black people sometimes goes awry because of this condescending and stereotypical mindset of those people that assume the worst about Black Americans. And that right there in itself is discriminating. It is racist by nature. And we talk about these things and try to tell Africans about it, and they just like, it's all in your mind. It's not even like that. But he's letting it be known that they know that it's racism here. They just choose not to entertain that mindset or thought process because it doesn't benefit them to do so.
It's what white people want to hear. An African has no problem betraying you based on, their tribe. Tribe means a lot. You could be amongst hostile white environment. You would think you can rely on an African. They would betray you based on their tribe. They'll probably help the white people.
And I think that this will be a continued reality for many other Africans that are very tribalistic. If they have an opportunity to stab in the back, especially Black Americans, because they know there's no consequence, they're going to continue to do it. That's why we're targeted. There's no consequence. They know it. So when Dr. Ericana steals all our money for this ADDI and runs off into the sunset with billions and millions of dollars, she's not going to feel nothing, no retribution, no consequence, no nothing, just, oh, well, she'd make up an excuse and go on about her business. Listen to this again.
Based on, their tribe. Tribe means a lot. You could be amongst hostile white environment. You would think you can rely on an African. They would betray you based on their tribe. They'll probably help the white people take you down. And generally, this African is very religious. If they are Muslim, they are super Muslim. If they're Christian, nobody beats them at church. An African would sit and argue why it is justified for white policemen to shoot and kill a Black person. African would always separate themselves from Black people. And I know some people are going to be like, does this make sense? If you live in the Western world, you would understand exactly what I'm saying. And right now, there is a big movement. It's the grassroots movement that is growing slowly. It's called ADOS, ADOS, ADOS. American Descendants of Slaves. I know, that doesn't even, some of the things do not make sense, what they are talking about. But they are pointing out how African immigrants that come to the United States, because we all look alike. We all have the same.
We do not all look alike. I'm so tired of them saying that bullshit. Just because you have eyes and ears and nose still does not mean we phenotypically look alike. I don't look nothing like Afridamus. I don't look nothing like your people. Stop it. Just stop it.
Skin color. They said it's detrimental to their movement because Africans have been counted part of them, but the mentality, Black identity is a mentality. And Africans don't share that.
It is not a mentality. It's what the government has put categories out there onto our identity. That's why we're trying to recreate our own identity, because we have never named ourselves since being in America. The government keeps changing our identity. Now we know that other immigrants are now using those terminologies for themselves, and we feel like we're losing and being erased. That's why we're trying to now declare our own identity. He doesn't know what he's talking about. The government classified as Black, colored, mulatto, freedmen, or wherever other name, African American, Black American. Those terms came from the government. It's not a mentality. But we never were tribalistic before because we didn't have to be, because we were outnumbered by all the other groups of people that are over here in America. So we try to look at all people that have darker toned skin as not being that much of a difference. But we now know the spirit and mentality does not have to always match with what we're about. And we're seeing this. Other intentions are out there now. Other people wanted to get ahead and they want to use you to get ahead, go through your lineage to get ahead. We see that that's what's happening with other immigrant groups. We are not doing these things to get ahead. Some people are pretending to be $5 Africans, though, because of a DNA test. But they're not using Africans and Caribbeans to get ahead through their history and whatnot. That doesn't happen that way. It always goes through us for some reason because of that Black term. And now other groups of people are utilizing Black and they're pretending like we're all the same now. And now we're seeing that that's not a benefit for us to see ourselves the same and them act different and maneuver differently and have other intentions with what they're doing and how they're going against and undermining us. It doesn't make sense to be linked to someone that's working against you. So that's why we need to delineate. No disrespect. It's just that you have your own identity and we want to maintain and have our own as well. So in this respect, he doesn't know what he's talking about, but let's continue.
So Black people are looking at you outwardly saying, okay, because you're Black, so you're part of the team. Here comes an African immigrant talking. These Black people are very lazy without researching their history, without knowing anything about them, what is going on. But what you fail to realize is whatever happens to a Black person, it will happen to you, whether you're from Congo or Wakanda. That's what things are like. Even look at slavery. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. Who sold who into slavery? Because, ladies and gentlemen, I can assure you the story we were told saying that it was white people that was kidnapping Africans, that wasn't true. That is not true. I can assure you, I can give you an example. Like, I grew up in Sierra Leone. I spent some time there and I witnessed civil war. So for those of you who, you probably don't know anything about that country, there was a civil war, there are people getting killed, bad things happening. You weren't aware of it in your country. Even if you were aware of it, you just heard it on the news. So tell me how, if, they could have been easily selling people. They were taking children from the country, taking them away. You weren't aware of that. You don't know what is going on. You know, do you know how many young Sierra Leoneans were adopted by white people, taken out of Sierra Leone, completely out of the continent of Africa? You count all the other African countries. So if slavery was going to happen, that's how they could easily do it. Okay? But in this sense, the slavery, you know, there were Africans who participated, who were making money as well.
And those same Africans are in business with the Europeans even today. And they unfortunately look at us as old commodities of old. They don't look at us as being people. To me, in my opinion, the government of Ghana is not looking at us as being his people because we're not. He's looking at us as old commodities that he wants to utilize for his economy and for his corruption. That's it. But, you know, this notion that we're the same, we're the same people, all this manipulation is nothing more than that. And now we're waking up to the hustle and how they've been just strategically using different phrases and quotes to try to get underneath our skin or in our minds and in our hearts. But that shit never worked on me because I seen right through it. Right when I heard it, I knew it was all a game. It was all spitting lies, manipulating, and playing on our emotions. Let's go.
Go to Ghana. On the coast of Ghana, they have castles there. You go to Anamabo, one of the biggest slaves. That place exported more slaves than anywhere in West Africa. You go look at the records between 1700 and 1800. They exported over 800,000 people. 800,000 people only from Anamabo. You're not even, talking about, the other castles. They used to have a castle there called Castle Brew, because the biggest slave trader on the Atlantic, they call it the Atlantic slave trade. His name was Richard Brew. You can look him up. Richard Brew. Richard Brew, his wife was an African. Her name was Ifwa Ansa, who, she was the daughter of, back then they called them the Cabochère, John Coranty. So I'm just giving you the history for you to understand that, we have to face these things, and bring out the reality so that we can move forward as people. Brother Mazi said the Emir of Katongora in Northern Nigeria. Oh yes, absolutely. If you look at the wars that took place in around 1822, Usman Dan Fodio, the Islamic wars they waged in Nigeria. Do you know how many people were shipped into slavery during that time? It was plenty. Tons of people were shipped, all from this religious thing. But I can also tell you another thing, that Africans don't really care about, which is self-pride, begging.
Keep that in mind, begging. We hear so many loans that have been given to African countries, and they still continue to get those loans, even though they know that they're totally indebting for generations their people. We'll get back to that, but I want to talk now about what's the root cause of Nigeria's economic crisis. I do believe because of this President Tinubu having a bloodline linked to Madame Tinubu, who was a renowned slave trader, that's his relative, that Nigeria is definitely not going to get blessed under his leadership. That's for damn sure. And that's partly what we need to understand. Like, some of these places are under a curse or hex or something to that effect, because, again, because of past sins that they have done because of slave trade. It's not meant to now be suddenly a booming blessing for those types of people, including there in Nigeria. Unfortunately, that's just the way that it's been, and that's probably the way it's going to continue for, I don't know, for a while.
A general strike demanding higher wages brings Nigeria to a standstill. Protesters say economic reforms have pushed more people into poverty. The government argues that they're necessary. So what's the root cause of the crisis in Africa's most populous country? This is Inside Story.
Oh, by the way, fair use of all videos for educational purposes under the 107 Act of 1976 for education, observation, research, information, entertainment, all the above.
Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Cyril Vanier. Nigeria is a resource-rich country. It has Africa's largest population, and it's one of the world's top oil producers. Yet, the nation of more than 200 million people has struggled with corruption, economic mismanagement, and a weak currency. The general strike is once again drawing attention to these challenges. Union leaders want a higher minimum wage, and they blame recent reforms by the new president, Bola Tinubu, for making the economic crisis even worse. Tinubu's government has scrapped fuel subsidies and eliminated multiple exchange rates in the hopes of rescuing the economy. Can a general strike that has shut down the national electric grid and several airports force the government to change course on this issue? We'll put that to our guests in just a moment. First, though, this report from Ibtisam Genfood.
Pressing forward with their demands, Nigeria's two largest unions have declared a general strike across several crucial sectors, forcing the closure of government buildings, flight disruptions, and power grid shutdowns. Talks with the government on a new minimum wage have collapsed.
Now we are inflicting hardship on Nigerians, which is not the normal thing. So if it is government that is thinking about their citizens, I think they should rethink and we'll go back to the table.
Unions say it's impossible to survive on the current minimum wage of $20 a month. Instead, they're demanding at least $370. Inflation has reached its highest level in nearly 30 years, jumping more than 10% since 2022. The worst cost of living crisis in a generation has left many Nigerians struggling to afford food. Some business owners in Abuja say they can't cope.
You make good money in food, which was true, but now any money you make, you take it back to the market. It's as good as working for those in the market and not for yourself.
It's the fourth strike to hit Nigeria since President Bola Tinubu took office in May last year. He was elected on a platform to wean the economy off subsidies. His government has slashed its assistance on petrol and electricity. It's devalued the national currency, the naira, which hit Nigerians hard. Ranked Africa's largest economy in 2022, the oil-rich country has slipped to fourth place.
Mr. President's policies, his strategies, and his programs have turned the country in the right direction, upwards, growing.
President Tinubu's ministers are urging patience. In the long queues of gas stations, Nigerians are left pondering how long they'll have to wait before their economic situation improves. Ibtisam Genfood, Al Jazeera for Inside Story.
Let's bring in our guests in Abuja. Halil Halilu, Chief Executive Officer of Nigeria's National Agency for Science and Engineering Infrastructure. This is an agency which is implementing measures to ease the effects of removing the fuel subsidy, so we'll want to hear from you about that. In Washington, D.C., Maka Anku, head of the Africa practice of the Eurasia Group, advising clients on politics and markets across Africa with a specific focus on Nigeria. And in Maiduguri, northern Nigeria, Hamzat Lawal, an anti-corruption activist, founder of Connected Development. That's a civil society organization which helps Africa achieve its sustainable development goals. A warm welcome to all of you. Let's start. We want to go to the ground first. Abuja, Maiduguri. As we record this program, the strike has been suspended between the labor unions and the government to allow for further negotiations on the minimum wage. So, Khalil, starting with you, do you expect things to return to normal now over the next few days, with the power grid back on, airports reopening, offices reopening, etc.?
Well, yes, I believe everything will go to normal. But I think one of the things we have to accept as country, is our realities. These events, this is as a result of events that have happened in the past. It's not something that started today. But things like the issue around fuel subsidy removal, we know it's something that cannot be sustained over time, and it is the right thing to remove it. And, the key thing is how do we mitigate this, and also how realistic the labor union is, with regards to their demands and requests. So it's an issue that has piled up, over years, and, you don't expect it to go overnight.
Okay, you raised some very interesting points, and then we're going to delve into those. Hamzat, before we do that, I want to talk about the minimum wage, but before we do that, are you seeing still the effects of the national strike, or has life returned to normal?
No, this is not normal, and life can never return back to normal, even if the strike has been called out just for 5 days to allow for more negotiation. The shutting down the power grid, people being stuck in different cities and not able to go back to their family and go back to work, high cost of living, high cost of transportation, and even paying out of pocket for education and even healthcare. So life is not normal, and it can't go back to normal, even if they've called up the strike for 5 days.
About the minimum wage, unions say they want a living wage, not what they call a starvation wage. So the minimum wage, as Ibtisam pointed out in her report, is currently 30,000 naira a month. That's $20 a month. And the trade unions would like that to be multiplied by almost 16 to roughly 500,000 naira a month, which raises the issue that Khalil was talking about. Is this realistic? Currently, with this $20 a month minimum wage, how much is a loaf of bread?
Well, before Tinubu's government, a loaf of bread was between 400 and 500 naira. Today, it's about 1,600 and 1,800, which is over 100% increase. A lot of families cannot afford the family loaf of bread. And the $30 cannot take family members to provide shelter, to provide food, provide cost of electricity, and even public transportation. So there's that pressure on low-income households earning $30 in a month.
Roughly how much is a tank of fuel, like to fill up your car?
Well, if you have 60 liters, that's now depends on even the city you are. In Abuja, it's 640 naira per liter. So 30,000 naira will not even fill your full tank as a public officer who earns $30 a month.
Say that again. If you are on minimum wage, your monthly wage is not enough to fill your car with petrol. Is that correct?
Yes, it's not enough to fill your car with petrol, not even to talk about service and even other consumables.
Okay. Well, this takes us to the heart of the matter, and we understand, at least in part, why unions are saying they don't want a starvation wage. Amaka, let me bring you into this. The president, Bola Tinubu, came to power promising to fight poverty, and he's taken some pretty drastic economic measures. But for the moment, what he has on his hands is the worst cost of living crisis in a generation. He's telling Nigerians to be patient. Should they be patient with him?
Great question. Look, thank you for having me. The core problem here is that Nigeria has an unproductive economy, doesn't produce much, doesn't export much. You have a situation where 6% of GDP, which is oil and gas sector, provides over 90% of foreign exchange. And so that's the core issue here. And I do think that in order to make the economy more productive, they needed to remove those distortions of a pegged currency, because you're not going to have competitive exports if you have a pegged currency, or even attract foreign direct investments with a pegged currency. And then, of course, the subsidies, as your first guest was saying, cost a lot of money. And so,
Amaka, pause for a second. Pause for a second. I want to go through this just a little bit more slowly, because there are two pillars, right, to the economic reforms. There was the currency, the naira, which has been devalued twice, which has lost 60% of its value. You were just saying the government, in your view, needed to remove the artificial level of the naira and let it get back to closer to its market value. You think this was necessary?
Absolutely. And can I just say, just to give some context, over 90% of Nigerians voted for these reforms. I know it's difficult, it's extremely difficult, but all the top 3 candidates promised to remove subsidies and to liberalize the currency. So yes, this is something that I think a lot of people acknowledge has to be done. And there's been some talk about how it could have been done differently. I really don't think there's a way to do it in a way that is not painful. The concern I have is that there hasn't yet been a clear direction communicated all the way from the presidency about what the growth plan is for non-oil exports. And that's what I really would like to see more.
Okay, and to make it crystal clear, Pillar 2 of the economic reforms, you mentioned this, was about removing the petrol subsidies. Now, for context, those have been in place for decades, pretty much since the 70s, and they were removed on day one of this president's term. You're right to point out that he campaigned on this. He said he would do this. He promised to do this, and he did it. And almost overnight, the cost of petrol more than doubled. You're saying this also needed to be done. It tripled. This, in your view, also needed to be done.
And Just to be clear, actually, they raised prices and they removed subsidies at the time. Subsidies are now effectively back because of the depreciating currency. So it's a tricky and a difficult situation. But yeah, so it needed to be done. And this is why it needed to be done. Look, Nigeria was spending over $10 billion, and it depends on the exchange rate, on subsidies per year. Nigeria has about a budget of between 20 and $30 billion. Just think about that for a second, right? This is a country that doesn't collect up to 10% of its GDP in revenue, in taxes. That's only comparable to failed states around the world. There's no money. The very little money you have, you're using it on an untargeted subsidy. You know, one of your guests was talking about how much it costs to fill your tanks. Yeah, how many people are driving cars who have cars to fill? It's not the most effective way to spend very little money.
Okay. Yeah, and
Well, as you can hear, they have a really messed up economy right now. The worst in a generation, untenable, and I don't see it improving anytime soon. What's up, Easy X? What's up, Miss D? What's up, Charlie Shaw? Ben? What's up, Tyron? What's up, everybody watching the clouds? If you have not yet, please hit the like. Please subscribe to my channel. I would greatly appreciate it. Tyron says, no, we don't have Bantus. Keep lying. We can tell an African from a Black American. Yes, we most certainly can most of the time. There are exceptions to the rule, but most of the time we can tell. Tyron says 800,000 people weren't brought to the U.S. Only a 4% came to the United States, yet they aren't forcing back to Africa on Caribbeans, Latinos, Hispanics who had received the bulk of Bantu slaves. I know. Like I said, it's always about what is Black Americans doing. Again, it's always targeting us. Now I want to get back to Afridamus, because like I said, this was I didn't see this video ever before. I just happened to find it this morning, and I thought that he was more truthful in this video. So I want to showcase how sometimes Africans can tell the truth. You know, I think it's beneficial for them to tell the truth, but they want to move secretively, though. Most of the time they want to move secretive.
If you live in the West, sometimes you would see white people, you would get into arguments with white people. You know, when they tell you about some of the African behaviors, you yourself, you would walk around here in the United States or Canada, in any major city, sometimes it's just embarrassing. You would see an African pretending, wanting people to feel sorry for them. When in reality, nobody feels sorry for you, because Africans don't feel sorry for Africans. So I'm going to share a video here of a Nigerian woman in Canada who was out there begging. You know, she was out there begging, and it looks like this is something that she's been doing for a while. And somebody was irritated by this. They decided to record it. And I think it's great that this individual record this. I'm going to play this video and then analyze it, tell you guys what was, break it down, what was said, what it means, and how she contradicted herself. Give me a minute here. Just bear with me here for a second.
This black bitch out there trying to scam people for money. They get enough money from the government. They get enough money from the government, but she still wants to out there trying to be a professional fan handler. No dignity, no self-respect. Let me go and see what she wants. I want to see her, try to tease her a bit. Okay, how much money do you need?
Lord, I need $20 to buy groceries to feed myself.
You need $20? Okay, so what about the government? Why doesn't the government give you money?
They give very little.
Doesn't the government give you money?
Yeah, they give very little. I have to pay my house rent. I have to pay my fees. At the end of the day, the money they make is very little.
Oh, okay. Where you come from?
Nigeria.
Nigeria? So why did you leave Nigeria?
I came here to have a good life. I went to school, York University. I had a job. The job finished. I've not been able to get a new job. Things are very hard for me and my son.
Oh, so you come from Nigeria to Canada to get a good life?
Yes.
To live a good life?
Yes, brother.
Why can't you live a good life in Nigeria?
The economy is very bad.
The economy is bad?
Yeah.
Okay, so why are you? Let me ask you a question. Why you Africans? Why are you Africans running from Africa to Europe, to Canada, to America to live with a white man? Why?
The economy at home is very bad, brother.
Yeah, because the economy?
Yeah.
So you mean you people in Africa, you can't run your own economy?
There's a lot of corruption.
Lots of corruption. So a lot of corruption. So you guys can't get along with each other. So you run from Africa to Europe to live with the white people because you can't manage your own country. Is that right?
Brother, the government.
No, I don't understand why you Africans keep running away from Africa to come to live with the white man. Why can't you take care of your own country? Why?
The government is very hard.
Oh, I don't agree with it.
Hard.
Yeah.
But don't talk about the government. The government has to manage the economic policy. But they are not doing so. The government is not doing so.
The government is what?
The government is not managing the economy very well.
Okay. So you can't handle it then, right?
Yes, brother.
I'm not your brother. Okay, I'm not your brother. I'm an American. Okay. So, anyways, have a good day.
Ladies and gentlemen, you all saw how that conversation went. The act that the African woman tried to put in front of this guy. And I liked his attitude. You know, I liked his attitude. Yes, this woman said she left Nigeria. Her excuse is, she said the economy is bad. Okay. Now you move to a place where the economy is good. How do you still, you get free money from the government to pay your rent, to buy groceries, and you're still out there begging? No dignity. No dignity. So these are the people.
And again, this is when he was more raw, uncut. I thought he was more honest. I'll get back to him in a minute, but I want to talk about the desperation of many Africans that are being dumped due to trying to migrate. They're being dumped in the desert, I think this video said. Hold on, let me find this. Dumped in the Sahara Desert. So again, most of us have never ever had to deal with this type of situation. They really be done dirty in North Africa, really, really bad. But this is again to showcase their plight, why they camouflage so much, why they are undercover a lot of times, why they're very secretive about what they do and how they move because they feel like they need to be able to hide and cover themselves. But in this instance, being dumped in the middle of the Sahara Desert, I mean, this is just cruelty at its best. But this is some of the things that migrants have to go through trying to get to another place outside of Africa.
Al Jazeera Podcasts. Today, how North African nations round up thousands of migrants and dump them in the desert.
The whole point is that they make people live in a constant state of discomfort and fear.
A new investigation documents systemic police abuse against people migrating to Europe, all with the backing of a not-so-silent partner, the European Union. I'm Kevin Hurton, and this is The Take. June 20th marks World Refugee Day. It's a day meant to celebrate the strength and the courage of people who have been forced to flee their home country to escape conflict or persecution. But in that celebration, there's a gray area. People seeking refuge who may not meet the legal definition of refugee, asylum seekers, and migrants. Meanwhile, migration management is front and center, particularly in North Africa.
The European Union has asked North African countries to do more to stop migrants headed north to Europe.
They get picked up off the streets, detained, and banished in the middle of nowhere.
I'm reporting live from the desert, and as you can see, this is the convoy going over there. And it's a massive convoy, massively deporting blacks to a no man's land. Where anything can happen, you got women and children into these trucks.
Now, though, we know what's happening, and crucially, who's footing the bill.
My name is Beatriz Ramar de Silva, and I'm an investigative reporter at Lighthouse Reports. I'm based in Barcelona. And Lighthouse Reports is a collaborative investigative newsroom. We led this investigation along with 8 media partners and 40 journalists over the course of a year.
Thank you very much, Beatrice. Maybe we start with one man's story to help illustrate this phenomenon of desert dumps. He's a 38-year-old Cameroonian man named Francois. Can you tell us his story?
Yeah, sure. So Francois is one of the 50 survivors of these operations that we spoke to. And his story is particularly striking because, unlike many people we spoke to, he was actually able to keep his phone during a long ordeal where he was intercepted at sea when trying to reach Europe and subsequently dumped in the desert. Francois, along with his wife and his 6-year-old stepson, were intercepted by the Tunisian Coast Guard at sea in September with a group of people which included 2 pregnant women, and they were en route to Europe. So they were quite close to shore when, in the early hours, he was intercepted by a Tunisian National Guard patrol vessel, and they were taken to shore to a port where he said migrants were beaten with sticks. About 300 people were loaded onto buses by armed guards and driven for hours inland, and he filmed part of this. And then later, at a border post, Francois himself, along with his wife and his young stepson, were separated from this group and put, along with 30 other people, into pickup trucks and dumped in like a desert area a few kilometers from the Algerian border. And this was around 4 a.m. when this happened. And at that point, the Tunisian guards demanded that they cross into Algeria. But as they were walking into Algerian forces fired warning shots. So they had to turn back to Tunisia. And
Wow, that's crazy. So they don't be playing in the North Africa area with these migrants at all. It just sounds really, really, man, just not caring one way or the other. Like, I can't imagine being stranded in the middle of the Sahara Desert. 4:00 a.m., you're being told to walk in one direction, and then you're hearing shots fired, and then you have to go right back the same direction you just came from. You don't know what you're going to do. You don't know how it's going to end. You don't know if you're going to survive in the desert. You don't know if you're going to die of thirst, hunger, what? You don't know if you're going to get shot in the head. I can't imagine going through something like that. But this is the type of conditions that Africans find themselves in. That's why when they talk about this, Black Americans go to Africa, I feel really insulted. I'm like, how dare you tell me to go where you don't want to be? How dare you try to trick me into being somewhere where you're not even at and you don't want to be? And the first chance that you could get an opportunity to leave Africa, you're going to take it, but you telling me to go to Africa? How rude that is to me. That is so freaking rude. Easy X says the hypocrisy, Africans and panties lie. Africa is 54 Wakandas, but they are running to the West. Yes, they are. You said, oh boy, was dogging her big time. Yeah, he was, but he was being honest. Like I said, back in 2019, he was being more correct about the mindset of how Africans are. And they really don't like talking about their own skeletons in the closet. They don't like to really put a flashlight on what they're about and what their conditions are like in their mind, and how they really like to move and again hide and be covered and be secretive. And they do it for a good reason, because they want to be able to camouflage and fit over here and hide over there and be like this and be like that. But again, being dumped in the middle of nowhere, I was hoping that they were going to have an actual person speak about what they endured. Hopefully this is going to tell us a little bit more. Fair use of video.
And so at this point, you know, they have no jackets. People had just come from being at sea.
Oops.
There was no food, no water. They were again rounded up by the Tunisian authorities, who drove them further north into the country and dumped them in the middle of nowhere. I mean, what is often that people tell us is that their phones are taken, their shoes are taken, all their belongings are taken. So the really great thing that was that Francois was able to record what happened to him.
We started praying to find someone to give us water. That's when it gets difficult, when you start hallucinating about things you should have naturally.
So we were able to verify his testimony by matching the GPS tracking on his phone with images and videos that he captured during what ended up being 9 days where he and his family were left to their own devices in remote and desert areas. Francois said he was begging for bread and water for days. At one point, he is violently assaulted in one village. And so he has to kind of go off-road back into these desert areas where he says he then begins to hallucinate, because this has been days and days of walking.
Wow.
So essentially, he and his family were left to fend for their lives.
This is not just repatriating people back to their country of origin. This is just taking people and then sometimes just putting them 300 kilometers back to where they may have started or someplace. It's just pushing them back a little bit. But is it about inflicting enough trauma to make the trip not worth it?
Essentially, I mean, the purpose is to make people's lives in this constant limbo and this constant state of danger.
And that's being designed on purpose like that. I don't think that is by happenstance, chance, that has been the result of what's going on with the migration crisis. But I think that it's done on purpose so as many people can die on their way trying to make it. You know, they're hopeful that many other people will perish in those deserts. And that's just a really awful way to think of dying. I would hope that that's not the case, but I know that many people have met their doom out there like that. So that's just one of the things that Africans have to endure to get up out of Africa. And that's why I feel like they should be talking more about their own plights, because again, they shouldn't be speaking on our plight because they don't know our plight like we know our plight. You know, we don't understand their plight as much as they know their plight, because again, we're not migrating all over the place like that. We're not trying to be everywhere, you know, and fill in every corner of the world. That's not what Black Americans typically do. But let's get back to Afridamus.
Well, these are the people that are making the Black image in the Western world look bad, make the African image look bad. But people don't want to address this. This begging is a culture, it's a deep-seated, rooted culture in African society. And it has everything to do with lack of self-awareness and lack of self-esteem and dignity. What do you, as a person, as a human being, truly think about it as a person? What would it take for you to push yourself in a society where, by the way, you know, this lady, she could get a job just sitting there, you know, watching mentally ill people and get paid for it. She can have her self-dignity and self-worth. But no, she's not going to do that. Instead, what is she doing? Begging. Begging. Where did this start? Back in Africa. Even most of you right now that are watching, if you're in the Western world, you probably have you have people in Africa that you don't like to talk to. Why? Because every time you talk to them, they are begging you. Even myself here on Messenger, do you know how many people constantly beg me? Constantly? They don't even know me from anywhere. It is ridiculous. The American who recorded her, is he Black? I'm trying to understand why he did that.
Well, that's how I feel about Africans trying to demand and beg that we invest with them. That's exactly how I feel. We don't know you from nowhere. We're not trying to be in Africa. Stop begging us or trying to demand of us something that you won't do for yourself. Stop it. That's what I wish Afridamus would have a discussion over. Why y'all keep on demanding investments and stuff from Black Americans? We see that they're not like got their shit together. So y'all need to do it on your own and leave us out of all this talk about building Africa and all these types of things. It's like that's not our place to build Africa. I'm sorry, as many as y'all would like to believe that we are belonging to Africa and we should be like worshiping Africa and Africans. We're not doing all of that. Not ones with brains and know God. They're not going to be acting like that. So please leave us out of all this begging. And Ericana is more so demanding that we foot bills. That's how bold and sick-witted she got, you know, talking about what we're supposed to be doing for Africa. That's why I'm exposing her, because she is a threat to us, a big threat to us. Let's get back to Afridamus.
American who recorded her, is he Black? I'm trying to understand why he did that. Dembo, I would address the person too that recorded it. It's obviously I think he's Black, but I will get to his part as well. And you have to understand, this comes from a place of frustration for many people. Because if you, as a person, you see yourself as a dignified human being, you know, you're willing to do what it takes to uplift yourself out of poverty. So this woman.
So you said, I'm confused. Are the Western countries to blame for the fleeing or the self-inflicted, or is it both? I think it's both, Easy X. Someone please answer me this. I think it's both. I think that because they have been like pimping Africans for a long time, the government for a long time, that, you know, they don't ask for too much except for loans. The Africans could change their rhetoric real quick if they desired to and say, we're not settling just for loans. We're going to require more of you. But they never really do. So, since they settle for just the money, that's how, the white people were able to do what they've been able to get away with. But also it's on them because they could, in fact, desire to change. And they could have other requirements for what, their resources are asking for, because they have all the resources in their backyard. It's up to them to make changes that only they should be able to do for their own people. And if they refuse to, then it's on them as part of the problem. That's my opinion. Miss D says it's both, because our government put puppet leaders and those leaders pocket the money instead of building, and the men in the countries don't fight for the country. No, they don't. You're right about that, Miss D. Exactly. It's both. And they do definitely have puppet leaders that's been there for umpteen years, and they're not going nowhere.
Say the government in Nigeria is corrupt, is wicked. Fine. You are able to leave Nigeria. You're in Canada. The economy is good. There is tons of jobs everywhere. I've been to Canada several times, It's a nice, beautiful place. So she comes to Canada. In Canada, as she said, I went to university. For some reason, all these African beggars, somehow they all went to university. They probably went and sat in some class in some little college where they could not pass any of the remedial classes. And then they tell you they went to university. But you don't even know how to fill out an application. This is the problem with African people. An African would rather sell his or her dignity as a human than try to overcome their weaknesses. Because, for example, if you don't know how to fill out applications, hey, learn how to fill it out. If the government is paying for your housing, like free food, like, what do you mean it's little? It's not enough. If you want enough for yourself, go out and do what everybody is doing. You think you're standing out there, people walking by you, you're panhandling, people are happy to see you? I remember one time I was around here. I was walking down the street. I saw a Gambian guy. The guy is homeless, panhandling on the streets. When he saw me, and I could tell that he is Gambian, right away I spoke to him in Mandinka, and he was very embarrassed. And I asked him, what is he doing out there? He's like, oh, brother, things are hard. He's like, can I get $5? I said, I am not going to give you a dime. You do what I do. We cry about the economy back there. Then you come to white people's land, as we call it, where there's tons of jobs. But you'd rather reduce yourself to this. So that right there, the difference, even like you see black people.
Like I say, he spoke the truth. A lot of ways they tap out early. They don't want to sacrifice for their improvement. They want to put off on what they're supposed to do onto us as an option. I did find this video very interesting that I'm about to show. And I wonder if you guys can catch what is not being stated in this video or not. This is talking about Marcus Garvey's dream finally being witnessed in Africa. Apparently, some people have gone out to the streets to say some rhetoric about being one, Africa, because that's the dream of Pan-Africanism, to have one Africa, one united Africa, one united people, no tribalism, no different religions, no tribalism, and none of those other types of things that's keeping them separated. So this video, I wonder if you guys can catch what I caught. I really like this video, though, because for the first time, I didn't hear something that I normally hear.
Ladies and gentlemen, the video that I'm about to play you clearly shows how Marcus Garvey's dream is alive in Africa. Marcus Garvey's vision has been reborn in Africa. He wanted one Africa, an Africa that all Africans would come together. Of late, many Africans, be it Kenya, Uganda, Gambia, Rwanda, Ghana, Nigeria, they are going to the streets and they are calling for one Africa, an African continent that Marcus Garvey wanted. Ladies and gentlemen, let me play you the video. Thereafter, we are going to discuss and talk about it.
As long as we are concerned, Africa is one. I am not a Ghanaian. I am not a Zambian. I am not a Zimbabwean. I do not recognize a Ghana. I do not recognize a Zambia. I recognize Africa. One Africa, one passport. One passport, one citizenship, one currency, one military command, one central bank of issue, one communication system, one people, one destiny. That is the Africa that we want. And we are here not to beg for it. We are declaring it as of rights. And it is ours to do so. Nobody has the right to sit in Berlin and declare Africa divided.
So ladies and gentlemen, after watching the video, you can clearly see that Africans are in the same spirit with what Marcus Garvey wanted. Of late, Africans in most of the African countries are demonstrating, and they are saying that we need a...
Like I always said, Pan-Africanism has to be in Africa. It cannot be anywhere else but Africa first. Because that's where all the Africans are. That's where it needs to be done. So I really appreciate that this is done in Africa by Africans, and keep listening because you'll hear some that they did not mention in this video. For the very first time ever, Black Americans weren't brought up at all. And this is what y'all need to do and be like to get things going. Stop arguing with Black Americans by why we don't care, why are we doing this, why won't we do that, and just move on about your business. Move around, do what you need to do. That's going to get more publicity and more emphasis on what it is that y'all want to have done over there in Africa.
Let's Africa. We need one Africa. Africans are saying we don't recognize the borders that were created for us in Berlin. In Berlin, you know, a town in Germany has no right to decide for us and create borders for us. We are saying we don't identify as Kenyans, we don't identify as Tanzanians, we don't identify as Ghanaians, we don't identify as Nigerians, but we want to be identified as Africans. We are tired of being divided. And the good thing is that the African youth have now decided to come out, you know, and voice out their voices. They are saying it is time for Africans to unite. And in this place, I'm going to give a big shout out to our brothers in Caribbean, Moso, Jamaica. They have been singing about Africa Unite, Africa Unite. And the good thing, I am happy when I see African youths coming together and saying they don't recognize the borders that were created for us. Ladies and gentlemen, what do you think would happen if Africa unite? Why do you think it is important for Africans to unite? Why do you think Marcus Garvey wanted it so badly for his people to unite in Africa? He wanted Africans to come together. Ladies and gentlemen, what about if we say that when Africans unite, our mindset is going to change? For very many years, it has been very bad that we Africans have to depend for foreign aid from outside. We have to depend for these countries, the Chinese, the Americans, people from Canada to come and rescue us. If we come together as a people, our mindset is going to change. And we are going to realize that we have the potential to solve our own problems. We don't need people from outside to solve our own problem. And so this unity that African youths are calling is very important. And we are happy that whatever Marcus Garvey saw is coming into a reality. And youths are saying, you know what? We want one Africa. Because once Africans, we are united, our mindset is going to change. And we are going to believe that our solution is not from outside, but from within. Number two, if Africans are going to unite the way African youths are rallying, our education system is going to change. Because if you look at African countries, we've got some countries with a better education system than others. And so when we come together as a people, if we unite as a people, our education system is going to upgrade, because the Kenyan education system is going to be put in comparison with the Nigerian education system, South African education system, Ghanaian education system. We are going to pick the best. And once we pick the best education system, we are going to produce, good skills. It is an education system that is going to be focused on fully and 100% exploitation of our natural resources and agricultural resources. So Africans coming together and we listening to what Marcus Garvey wanted, we are going to have a very good education system. Number three, if Africans can unite, we are going to have a proper resource management. Ladies and gentlemen, let us say the truth. Africa is rich. Let nobody lie to you that Africa is poor. My fellow Africans, let nobody lie to us that we are poor. We are being told that we are poor because of the poor resource management. And this is happening due to the division. We are divided. We are divided. But once we come together, the way Marcus Garvey wanted us to come together, we are going to ensure that there is, we've got a lot of efforts that are put into place to ensure that we have a proper resource management. Look at Congo. Look at Congo. If Africa was one, right now we would be, managing the resource of Congo properly. Look at Nigeria. Look at Ghana. Look at Kenya. Look at Sudan. So once we unite, the way the youths are singing, the way the youths are demonstrating, and we do what Marcus Garvey wanted, we are going to have a proper resource management.
This is what they need to be spreading this video around for them to get motivated within themselves and feel this vibration that is on this video and this sentiment that's being shared about what Africans can do for themselves. They need to do this. I applaud this video because I did not hear Black Americans need to go do this. Black Americans need to build. Black Americans need to go to Africa. I didn't hear none of that. I'm pretty sure that maybe in the back of his mind, he wanted to say that, but he didn't say it. And I really appreciate the fact that he just focused and honed in on the Africans, because what I've been trying to say is, with all this expectation of what Black Americans ought to be doing for Africa, what are the Africans doing? Why aren't there any expectations applied to Africans? I would really like to know, other than them begging or demanding of us to be a part of whatever they feel we ought to be a part of. They have to be held accountable for what it is that they're not doing. And they should be disallowed from scapegoating and including us into their bullshit, because we have nothing to do with the conditions on the ground of Africa, and we can't change anything because we have our own plight to fight to survive.
And once we have a proper resource management, we are going to stand out, because you know what? We are a rich continent, not a poor continent. Number four, unity, because we are divided. So we coming together, we are going to improve on our unity, because as Africans, we need unity. Now, what do I say that we need unity? Once we come together as a people, we are going to have one voice. You get what I'm saying? So that unity is going to be strengthened. That togetherness is going to be strengthened. And so whenever we are bargaining, with people from outside. We are doing so with unity. Number 5 is freedom. Once we come together as Africa, once we unite as a people, we are going to enjoy our freedom. We are going to decide on who comes, on our land. At the moment, we don't have any decision. And so any country that is powerful, any nation that is powerful can easily walk into African continent and do whatever it wants. But once we are united, we can decide and we can enjoy our freedom, a freedom as a people. Now, once we reunite, we are going to realize that as a Kenyan, I can go to South Africa freely, to Nigeria freely. I don't need to go abroad.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Like, that should be the rallying cry that they all can get on board with wanting to get open borders or one common passport or something, instead of all the varying passports or visas that you have to get right now. That's such a nuisance to them, and how expensive it is to be traveling within Africa. That's what they all should be on one accord about. Like, all of them should be pressuring at the same time all their governments about the nuisances of traveling within Africa. And why is it that other nationalities with United States or UK or wherever are able to freely get in and out better than the ones that are in Africa? That should be the rallying cry, but I'm not the one to rally that cry because I'm not over there in Africa traveling nowhere. I'm not going over there to visit, so why would I be speaking up about that? That's on Africans to do. That's their unifying same problem that they all can share and understand why it's not beneficial to have it as is. But this is a rallying cry that y'all should surround yourselves with, different platforms talking about it, getting all the other people involved in other places of Africa to speak the same language and press the issue and try to inspire others to press the issue too. But y'all don't focus on yourselves. Y'all focus on other people that have nothing to do with what is going on over there, mainly Black Americans. And y'all got to nip that and stop that, because that's hindering y'all from having one voice about something that y'all can agree on. We can't agree on it because we're not over there. And y'all should stop expecting us to do your job for you. That's my suggestion.
I don't need to go abroad. And so I'm going to enjoy my freedom as an African. I am going to perambulate the African countries. And so we are going to enjoy our freedom as a people. And so to my fellow Africans, this unity that our youth are trying to rally, let us support them. Lastly, the pride. Once we come together as a people, our pride is going to be cemented. Our pride as a people. Because once we come together as a continent, we are strong. We are managing our resources better. Our education sector has improved. Our agricultural sector has improved. So we have got enough food. You know what I'm saying? We have got a proper way of managing our resources. So the money is there. I mean, the wealth is there. So what am I trying to say? We've got the pride. We've got the pride. And so any African that is going to leave the continent, and even go to any other continent, he is proud to identify with Africa. And even our brothers, from other continents are going to be proud to identify with Africa. Why? Because that time, Africa is going to be a power.
No, he's insinuating us right there, but at least he didn't outright make the whole conversation about us. But again, it's not about whether or not we don't have pride in Africa. We are not African. We don't share your language, your culture, your customs, or anything like that. I think that y'all should just focus on yourselves. I think that's always bringing us into that even a little bit is not, I missed this part of the video, but he insinuated us right there. Y'all shouldn't worry about what we have pride in. Y'all should worry about what you got pride in for yourself. And we need to worry about us having our own pride within ourselves. At least respect one another. That should be the goal, to respect one another, not have pride. It should be about respecting one another's positions and mindsets and views and identities and thoughts. respect. We don't even have that. Africans refuse to give us our respect. And that's why you guys are having a lot of pushback from us now, because y'all refuse to respect us. It's not about pride. He wouldn't even say respect. He needs to say respect first.
Africa is going to, is going to be wealthy, and we can talk in the table of big nations. So my people, my African brothers, the call that started for Africans tonight, let us continue this spirit. Let us try and come together as a people. People from Ghana, people from Congo, people from Sierra Leone, people from South Africa, people from Uganda. It is time for us to come and unite and be one people. This is what our leader, Marcus Garvey, wanted. He wanted us to be a people who come together. And ladies and gentlemen, when this happens,
unfortunately, Marcus Garvey was our charlatan, and he doesn't get that, but we understand that. We understand that he was a boule or Freemasonry. He was sent by Londoners on a mission to colonize us to Africa, and luckily it didn't work then. It's not going to work now. This Pan-African talk is about colonization of Black Americans. We're not going for it. It's not a benefit for us, but it should be a benefit for Africans over there in Africa. That should be the going route. That should be the rallying cry. And I salute the video for being almost about just simply Africans and not about us, because I get sick of that. Let me see what you guys are saying. Easy X says, Panties want a united Africa, and they think they can bring it about. Their strategy is wrong, but they would never admit it. Africa can't unite in our lifetime, but Pan-Africans will not admit this. They will never admit it because they always look into us to be the sacrificial lamb. They want to undermine us. In their mind, they feel like that's going to better Africa, but it's not. It's just going to destroy us by itself. They don't understand that they're anti-Black American in their rhetoric, in their movement, how they're talking to our leaders behind our back, how they changed our narrative about what our plight is about, now on to Africa. And not everybody signed up for that. Just because you had a few million go over there, you didn't have 40 million go over there. The bulk of us didn't care to go, and we still don't care to go. But people are acting like we're all on this because we got invited to Africa. No, just a few million went. That's it. Let me see. Facts for Black. They have to fight for themselves, Miss D says. And even the African that be here for 40 years have recent relatives on the continent. We don't. Exactly. And so for them to try to guilt us and make us feel like we're doing something wrong by not caring is a futile battle that they're taking on. Because again, we have nothing over there that could cement us because we don't have nobody over there that we're related to. That's just the truth. We are not related to any of y'all over there. So trying to mind F us, trying to Jedi trick us, trying to get our money, again, is all that they're trying to do. And we see everything playing out right now. Unfortunately, I see it all. And we're starting to wake up and understand the manipulation that's being played onto us, called Pan-Africanism. We see the fraudsters that are representing and rocking this Pan-African lie. I've been exposing them on this platform. And now, hopefully, the message is going to get spread more and shared and liked more. How you doing, Four Rivers? Easy X says 53 countries can focus on one country and create a Wakanda country, then repeat the process until all 54 countries are Wakanda countries, but they will not unite to do it. Selfish tribal clowns. Well, what I think it is Easy X, the people that have the expertise that have left Africa are not trying to go back full time to live in Africa. They're not going to want to leave what they built in America or the UK or Canada and sacrifice themselves to help build this Wakanda you mentioned. That would mean that they would have to forget about themselves and put all their toil into the soil of Africa. And instead of them wanting to sacrifice like that because they got the numbers, they have more than enough people and men that they could teach to do something over there. They just tapped out, and they're trying to get us to be the ones that have to worry about what it is that they refuse to worry about. And it's like, no, we're not going to worry about what you refuse to worry about. It's not our problem. I'm not going to feel guilted by feeling the way I feel because I have nothing over there to connect me. It's just the truth. For Rivers, thank you for coming through. Misty says, we have pride in ourselves, but self-hating panties want us to be African. Facts. The African descendants mess is weird because as time passed, we lost a lot of DNA from the continent. Yeah, it's weird because that conversation, like I said, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago was not being had. It might have been had in certain colleges that were theorizing things, you know, the academic nut bars, the Pan-African nutty bars are the ones that flipped this so-called notion that we're a diaspora when we weren't originally defined as a diaspora. So it's just been Pan-Africans meddling. And now they're trying to make it seem like there's something wrong with us if we don't think like them. And it's like, we don't have to think like you. We're not trying to be in Africa. What part of that don't y'all get? You don't even want to be in Africa. That's why you're talking shit to us over here in America. The Africans themselves don't want to even be there. If they had the opportunity to leave, they would go. They're trying to go as best they can now. So all this talk about Africa, 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 it's just a nothing burger. It's nothing. For Rivers says, it's good to see an African talking to Africans about unifying. That's what I'm saying. Like, I have a lot more respect for that video because, again, it was about them getting their shit together by themselves. And that's what they need to start doing because they're trying to make us the excuse for what is not happening over there in Africa. And it's like, no, you are the reason why nothing's happening over there in Africa because you left and you're not going back. And most of y'all don't want to be there. That's your continent. That's your country. That's your shit. I don't have nothing to do with it. I don't care if there was one ancestor 400 or 500 years ago that might have come from there. What does that mean today? Nothing. And you can't make me feel some kind of way about it because I don't. And I'm not going to let people guilt me by not feeling some kind of way about what's going over there in Africa when the Africans don't feel no kind of way. I'm not going there. Let's go back to Afridamus real quick.
Like you see black people, someone with a black mentality, that you would see panhandling, they are either mentally sick or on drugs. But this woman, as you can see, she looks like she's normal. You see, when the guy hit him with reality, she sobered up. She dropped that fake cry like people like to do in Africa. She dropped it right away and started facing reality because she knows what the guy was saying was true. But that guy also, even though he's frustrated, you know, he kept saying, you Africans come and live with the white man. Okay, that land, Canada, that is not origin to Europeans. Europeans came and found Native Americans that lived in Canada. You know, they massacred most of them. Some of them still exist. Canada is they are not as nice as they present themselves.
You need to go away, Elijah, whatever your name is. Don't tell me about going back anywhere I'm not from. So you get timed out for 24 hours. I don't like that mess. Don't play games with me.
I mean, of course, they're going to be calm, but, they've killed half of those people and still continue to kill them. You don't hear about them because they are isolated. So people were there. Yes, even though Canada did not practice slavery, how did black people end up there? It was runaway slaves. They were running away, from slavery in the United States, in the Caribbean, to Canada. Canada used to be the place for refuge. And most of those black Canadians, and even some white criminals, were once they taken from Nova Scotia and other places, taken to Freetown, all dumped there. That's how all that happened. So the guy, even though he was angry, trying to completely disconnect himself from the continent of Africa, that's just, it doesn't, to me, he lacks true understanding of who he is as a person. Because no black person in the Americas can disconnect themselves from West Africa, especially.
Sure we can. And that's the part that that's what they would like us to feel like we can't get away from them. We have never been connected to y'all. I don't know why y'all just are not gathering the reality of what it is. We don't care about 400 or 500 years ago. We only care about today. Y'all care about something that we're not caring about. Make that make sense. You can't make me care about something that you think I ought to care about. Who are you to me? Nobody. Nobody. Now, I wanted y'all to hear the part you said, isn't this guy living in the United States, talking all that trash. I wanted you to hear the part that he said, though, in the beginning of this live, because it was fascinating what he said. And I was like, oh, he's spilling beans now. He's spilling beans. Hold on. Was that? Okay, hold on. Okay, I'll let you listen to some of it, though. Hold on.
It would have manifested itself in our environment. And how things are ran. But we don't do that. Instead, we pass this on to so-called religion. And these religions are foreign religions, by the way. It's easier to hide our deceptive behaviors, our cruel behaviors. Sometimes, like, I don't even want to use this word, but I have to.
Deceptive behavior. Peep game what he's about to say. Again, I know a lot of camouflaging Africans are out there that don't want Afridamus spilling this truth, but I had to play it yet again for y'all to hear this.
Subhuman way of thinking. Because an African is somebody who, a black person is an African that evolved. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be in a certain geographical location. No. How many black people, how many Africans have you met, let's say in the Western world? You talk about racism that is staring you dead in the eye, and they would deny racism because they think that's what white people want to hear. An African has no problem betraying you based on, their tribe.
They have no problem betraying you based on tribe. He told the truth right there, and that's still the case today. They will, in fact, backstab us before it's all said and done if we allow them to, believing in the lie that they're trying to tell us.
A black person is an African that evolved. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to be in a certain geographical location. No.
We evolved into our own people. That's what we evolved into, our own. That's what we are as Black Americans, and people don't want us accepting that truth. They want us to pretend like we just freshly came from boats. It just happened like just yesterday. We have evolved into our own people. That's what we are right now.
How many Black people, how many Africans have you met, let's say in the Western world? You talk about racism that is staring you dead in the eye, and they would deny racism because they think that's what white people want to hear. An African has no problem betraying you based on, their tribe. Tribe means a lot. You could be amongst hostile white environment. You would think you can rely on an African. They would betray you based on their tribe. They'll probably help the white people take you down. And generally this...
Bingo. Bingo. And that's exactly what's going to end up happening to many of us trusting, unfortunately, many of these tribalistic Africans. He told the truth right here, though.
African is very religious. If they are Muslim, they are super Muslim. If they're Christian, nobody beats them at church. An African would sit and argue why it is justified for white policemen to shoot and kill a Black person. African would always separate themselves from Black people. And I know some people are going to be like, does this make sense? If you live in the Western world, you would understand exactly what I'm saying. And right now, there is a big movement. It's the grassroots movement that is growing slowly. It's called ADOS, A-D-O-S, A-D-O-S. American Descendants of...
And now look at where we are now, 5 years later. FBA, hardly, ADOS is hardly talked about, really. I don't even know where Yvette Carnell has been. I mean, she said a couple of things on her advocacy channel. You see, ADOS Advocacy Foundation. But she's really not shaking and baking like you would hope she would be doing right about now. She did make mention a couple of days ago on this one video. I'll play this snippet. But she's been very, very, very quiet. The only one that's really been making noise and waves, is, unfortunately, is Tariq Nasheed. I don't know what she's doing, but she's too quiet, from my understanding.
I think that there has been a misunderstanding in reference to where you stand and where the organization stands in reference to Black immigrants receiving some type of repair. You're basically saying that their case should be taken to those countries like France or Belgium, etc. You're not saying that you don't think they don't deserve any type of repair.
No, they just, like, we're talking about, let's keep the example on Haitians specifically. They absolutely deserve reparations from France. Like, I will be the first one to buy them a drink and help them and celebrate with them because you deserve it. You are owed it. They have plundered your country. They have stolen it. You have had to pay stuff back. That's awful. I agree with you. In this country, though, there's a specific lineage going back to slavery. Slaves built the country. Like, there is no other Black immigrant group that built the country. You may have come here. You may have made a contribution. A lot of groups did. That's not just Black immigrants that did that. But we're talking about slavery and a specific, all of our harms are anchored in slavery. All the way from there to 2024, they're anchored in that. And you have to define the harm group. In order to go through the course, you have to define which group was harmed. I have all of the data for which group was harmed, for ADOS and how we were harmed. That data does not extend to any other group. You have to measure how much we were harmed. You have to measure our contribution to this country. There is no America without American slaves.
That's a really good point. Now, I want to get to this issue because I think what has happened, like, there's a lot of things that I see from ADOS that I think is absolutely phenomenal. One of the things that I have seen, and I know that you can't control what people post on social media. It is what it is. But there have been some social media posts that people would identify as xenophobic, right? Like there have been some statements that have been made about Black immigrants, calling them names such as tethers or anchor babies. Like these are the posts that are on like mainly Twitter, you know how Twitter can be, that kind of thing. And then people will see that and they'll see that that individual person has ADOS like in their byline or whatever. And so there has been this claim from others that they feel that ADOS is xenophobic. How do you feel about that?
I think, I think the best thing people can do, honestly, is go to ADOSfoundation.org. If we're xenophobic, like as a group, as an organization, there's no way we would have an agenda that extends to the entire Black community. Like that's not, like you say, I can't control Twitter, but I can control our agenda. And that Black agenda and its suite of anti-discrimination that we call for and all that sort of thing, that extends to no matter who your lineage is. It's just reparations. So I cannot control that. But one thing I would actually say though too is people always call out the what they deem to be xenophobic. Nobody usually calls out the anti-ADOS rhetoric, right? I saw somebody, and I pointed this out before, like, oh, you're the top slave, right? Like, when people call us, when we found out that they were calling us Akata, which means wildcat, and they were using that specifically and talking about ADOS. So you have to also understand that there has been some specific kind of anti-ADOS rhetoric. Part of the problem that happens, and I'm not just talking about Black immigrants here, I'm extending it out. You can talk about when the Irish became white or whatever. A lot of people kind of integrate into this anti-ADOS posture because they want to assimilate into whiteness. And assimilating into that kind of whiteness usually means assimilating into some of the ideas of white supremacy, which means that these people just don't work hard enough, they're lazy, whatever. So we see some of that as well. Now, the tether thing goes to another group. I don't really get involved with that. We didn't make it up. We don't usually use it. But what I'm saying is that these little spats and fights, they don't always start with us. There are people who have decided.
They most certainly don't start with us, but we have been fighting back lately. That's why I have been formatting my platforms to respond to certain people and also to showcase Pan-African in the light that y'all need to see it. Let's go.
For a long time, that it's their job to define ADOS, that they get to say who we are. If we say, hey, we're American, they get to say, you're African, you're stupid, you don't know, oh, where's your family from? You don't even know where your people come from. Well, my people are here. I can tell you, my grandma, my great-grandma, whatever, my people are here. So there are a lot of people online who try to diminish us as well, and that results in all kinds of fights and name-calling because it's Twitter.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Even for me personally, I've had other groups tell me that I don't have any culture because I'm Black American.
Yep, that would be the gist of it, y'all. So what I want to do now, let me see what you guys are saying in the chat room first. And then I want to go back to that older video that I played of Dr. Ericana because there was a certain part of it I missed. I didn't watch the whole entire video, and there's a part of it I want y'all to hear what she had to say because she had a lot to say. And again, she is the super predator as a Pan-African. The mindset of Pan-Africans is to dissolve away Black Americans financially, identity-wise, and otherwise. Go through us, gut us for this so-called building of Africa, which will just be our destruction, joining us in the festivities of what other melanated people are going through worldwide. That's what they intend to try to do against us. And this is what I've been calling out about what Pan-Africans' mission is about. Anti-Black American is what they are. You said now Yvette is dismissing the term Black. Now she's saying Black immigrants, Black is our ethnicity, but sometimes she has an ego. And she said we should call ourselves ADOS. Miss D says, I'm not calling myself ADOS. She's not productive enough for me to be putting my weight on what she's talking about. She has not shown herself as being potent enough. I mean, with her working at the Capitol Hill before, you would think that she would maneuver way different, but she's not really doing anything. So sorry, Yvette, some things you say is on point, but the way you're moving is lackluster. Miss D says some of us has a sickness because we can be Islamophobic because we're not connected to Africans and Caribbeans. The interviewer is either a panty or a person not of our lineage. I think she said she was, but I don't think it is us being Islamophobic just standing up for our own mind. I think that what they're trying to do is make it hard for us to feel free in expressing ourselves by just throwing that word out there. I'm not Islamophobic. I don't hate anybody. I hate people that hate me. If you hate me, I hate you. If you're undermining me, I don't like that either. I don't like you either. But if you are just minding your own business, doing your own things, not placing expectations onto other people that have nothing to do with your cause and plight, then I don't have a problem with you. I only have problems with people that are imposing onto our plight and trying to change and undermine what we want here in America, which is quite a few immigrants, unfortunately, but they're not all doing it. Not all of them are doing it, but the ones that are trying to get power is doing it. Like that Austin Ching guy that said as soon as he become governor in Michigan, he was going to change and scrap Black History Month. Like the first thing that he wanted to do is mess with us, undermine our history. And I understand that Morgan Freeman has been making comments about not wanting the Black History Month no more. He just wants to be considered American. He don't want to differ in other cultures of America. He just wants everything to be flat out American. But the danger of that to me is kind of not, showcasing who is who in America, who were the people that helped build America. You should not want to undermine their efforts. You should want to make sure that our accomplishments are understood and known, a part of history, because people are trying so hard to just erase our history. So I don't think that Morgan Freeman is right in what he said, but I understand his opinion to just want to be considered American, because I think it can be problematic because people make it problematic. But my opinion is Black History Month is still needed, ultimately. Four Rivers says, Afridamus was right about indigenous Black Americans being different than the African due to evolution. This is what causes culture shock for the Black American when they repat to Africa. This can crack one's mind. Oh, I can imagine. I can imagine trying to fit in, trying to sound like or look like other people. That's not you, not your culture, not your spirit. And you're just trying to take off what you are and become something new. I don't want to go through none of that. I'm not doing it. Easy Act says, my disagreement with Yvette is her hypocrisy. She is against flat Blackness, but she has a Black agenda, fighting for all Blacks. Other Blacks can fight for themselves, Black agenda only. What other part was she trying to say to include other Blacks for? Like in what regard? Like in America, you talking about we all need to be assisted? I mean, anyone that's over here in America and they are American, we have got to treat them kind of like American if that's the way in which they are. But the problem is most of them are not just like that, though. A lot of them have other allegiances and other intentions, and they think about their home country, and they can't separate themselves from that. So unifying us on an agenda where these people are wanting to elevate their placement of or their country where they're from, I mean, I don't know what agenda she would have that would have us unify over, because they're not just looking at themselves as just being American. So I'm kind of confused on what she means. Maybe you can explain it better, Easy X. I'm not quite sure what she would mean in unifying other groups of people if they have other mindsets. I don't know. Yes, that's why I don't follow Yvette and others. Four Rivers says, and not all Black Americans are ADOS, so that's not acceptable. I feel you. Four Rivers says the interviewer is probably a Boule. They're usually Pan-African by default. Yeah, they are. Yes, they are. Seem like it, Miss D says. Miss D also says we still need Black history for our kids. We still have history to uncover. Exactly. We really have a whole lot of more information that's been hidden. And I think it helps with our confidence and pride by remembering what our ancestors and inventors have accomplished, or senators or governors or whoever, to help the young mind to understand that they're able to be whatever they desire to be. We need to show the pride and the history, because a lot of times we're painted in such a negative light that the only thing that you have left is the past. And that's kind of sad. Four Rivers says, yes, Freeman's statement might sound progressive to some, but others could use this to erase Indigenous Black Americans' history. That's what I wish I could have a conversation with him to convey that to him. I don't know if he would listen or not, but I would definitely bring that up in conversation with him. If I ever was in his presence, I would ask him about that. For Rivers says, if everyone else can get a month, why can't the people that have been here the longest have one? Exactly. Everybody keeps attacking everything related to us. And again, they think we are expendable. They think we're usable. Use them up and spit them out. That is the mindset of Pan-Africans. And this is why I have been on a rampage of sorts talking about this Americana. I want to show y'all a little clip of what she was talking on. I don't know if I played this portion of the live or her video. It's a 2-hour video. She said an awful lot in this video. Let me see. 24. Okay.
Of something equivalent to Amtrak, the Cape to Cairo highway, railway line. Did you realize how much money that is?
Hold on, I think I'm on the part where she's, okay, hold on, let me go back a little bit. Of course, we've seen the guy that was begging for her love, this fool. And right after that, I missed what she had to say, or maybe I played that before, but let me play a little segment of it again.
Help with infrastructure, from transportation, to energy, to broadband, to housing, to water sustainability, to managing these things. There are so many African Americans here that are in positions of leadership that can project manage.
But like I said, people keep designating us. This guy is talking about what he wants to do, but he's always including us as if we're a package deal. Speak for yourself. You're the one that wants to kiss her ring. You're the one that's giving her praise. Stop assuming that you got it like that and can include other Americans into what you want to do. They don't know how to just leave others alone, though. They always got to be, yeah, other Americans could do this, and stop designating us for what you want to do. If you want to do it, say, I want to do this. I'm going to do this. Let me sign up for whatever you're talking about, Americana. No, they don't know how to do that. Listen to this.
We have Black kids that are engineers that can code. They can do these things. And, from the outside looking in, because I don't pretend to know everything, but if we could help the African countries start making things, then they don't have to go outside.
And this is why people keep assuming that we all feel the same, because he's always talking about we. Who is this we? It's you only talking to her. This is how dumb these Pan-Africans are. They always want to try to give up to these imaginary gods for sacrificing other people towards what you have in mind or envision to do. Just keep it to yourself.
anything. We build the infrastructure and we start making things. Now we're sustainable. And
Let me tell you
I
something.
think,
Let me just add to what you're saying. 2017, President Trump was addressing the African heads of states, and he said, "I don't know why you guys are poor. My friends go to Africa and come back rich." Think about that. You're being told don't go to Africa. I've heard many say, "Well, what's in it for Africa? These African leaders, they just want to take our money." Far from it, my brothers and sisters. People are going to Africa.
Of course, that's exactly what she's trying to do. Take our money. I don't know why she tried to make it seem like that's far from it. But again, that's her main goal, is to take as much money as possible from us, from Black Americans. That is her designated goal.
Not because they love Africans. They're going to Africa because there's something amazing and wonderful going on. Before COVID, if you're going to be flying to Africa, 75% of the people in the plane do not look like you and I. If you are within Africa, 75% of the people in those planes, intra-Africa flights, they don't look like you and I. They are not coming to Africa because they love the Africans. They're coming to Africa because something amazing and wonderful is going on in Africa. Black people, on the other hand, are being told Africa is a diseased and dying continent. But we know the truth. 50% of the world gold is in Africa. Gold alone, my brothers and sisters, 1,000 kilograms of gold will give you 60 million. Right now, I just got a proposal for 5 million. You could be 50% owner of a gold mine that's currently producing 50 kilograms of gold a week. That's 200 kilograms a month. They're needing the investment to buy bigger equipment. The mine is capable of producing 1,000 kilograms a month. Even at 200 kilograms a month, gold is going at $60,000 a kilo. Multiply 200 kilos by 6,000, by 60,000. That's 12 million. Now, when you increase that production to 1,000 kilos a month, that's 60 million a month. We're talking minimum things that people could do to make money very quickly. They are going to Africa to do that. They are stealing from Africa in broad daylight. You go to the Congo, you'll see 747 flying into the middle of the jungle. They got tarmacs. They build tarmacs in the Congo, in the jungle. And they're stealing the minerals and flying right out of Africa. Africa is where it's at. I've spoken to many heads of states who said, "Ambassador," and I have to keep reminding the heads of states, every time you talk about African diaspora, they only think of African Americans, and I have to constantly remind them, because they'll say, my sister, where are the African Americans? And I'll say, well, Mr. President, you must also ask about the Caribbean, African Latino. They're your children too. But in their heads, they want the African Americans to come home. And they would say repeatedly, why can't they come home and make the money in Africa?
Because it's not our home and we don't want to go. That's why. I'm so sick of these people. They all believe that they know what's best for us, but they're not even in Africa. Make it make sense, y'all.
You can invest in Africa, then go back to America and play golf just like they do. Because that's what they're doing. They're investing in Africa and coming back to America, to Europe, and playing golf while their money is working for them in Africa. Let's not be stupid. You're going to Africa to build generational wealth. Opportunities that will never be awarded to Black people in this country or anywhere on earth. You are in a position to be in front of the line for those opportunities. But that requires collaborations. That requires...
Again, the only people that should be in the front of the line pertaining to Africa are the Africans, the ones that are actually from Africa, the ones that have the culture or the family members that's on the continent should be the people that's in front of the line. Again, she wants us to believe that we should lead the charge. That's not a smart thing to do, because again, we're going to be used up and spat out as as she goes. And again, it's not our place to lead anything pertaining to Africa. But again, this is her hustle. She thinks she got us pegged. She thinks she can say whatever. And everybody just going to believe her words.
Pulling our funds together to be shareholders in this major. Can you imagine if you're a shareholder of something equivalent to Amtrak, the Cape to Cairo highway, railway line? Do you realize how much money that is? If you can be a shareholder in the Inga Dam, which is going to be built on the Congo River, when the Inga Dam is complete, it's going to power all of Africa and part of Europe. Can you imagine being a shareholder of that? Do you really want to miss out on that? As we speak right now, Egypt, just Egypt, is paying $7 billion to farmers in Ohio, United States. You heard me. Egypt is paying $7 billion to the farmers in Ohio. And that money that should be going to you. You know why it's going to Ohio? Because the infrastructure is not there for the wheat to be grown in Kenya and be ferried to Egypt. Something that simple. So you're going to be on the table to look at it and see what are the corridors that need to be developed. Where do we need a railway line? Where do we need a highway in order to take that contract? My brother, $7 billion, that's a lot of money. Just for wheat from one country. That's before the others. Most of North Africa is a desert. All their food is being grown. All of it is being grown from outside. All their food should be coming from sub-Saharan Africa. But because of the logistics of getting it, they're having to go thousands of miles away. We're talking simple solutions. Commodities from Kenya to go to Central African Republic, they have to be ferried by ship from East Africa, from Kenya, all the way down to Cape Town, and then all the way up the west coast of Africa to Cameroon, only to be ferried into Central African Republic. It's insane. All those logistics, you can be on the table where we can sit back and say, where do we need to start? And which corridor should we develop first? We have an offer at the table right now. It's called the Trans-Africa Value Corridor. And saying the most difficult block to do business in Africa is from East Africa to West Africa along the belly of the continent. The belly of the continent is starting from Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, all the way through DRC, Angola, Equatorial Guinea, Cameroon, Central African Republic, Congo Brazzaville, Gabon. That whole belly of Africa is impenetrable. We got to open it up. So the plan now is to connect the Indian Ocean to the Atlantic Ocean, starting with a city in Tanzania. And every 200 to 300 kilometers, there's going to be a city which is going to be built based on whatever is going on in the area. But let me tell you how this whole belly is going to be opened up. They've established 3 corridors. This project is called Travaco, which stands for Trans-Africa.
She talked about this a couple of years ago. She had claimed that, again, she had borrowed a $500 million bond from an unknown diasporan. I believe it's Akon. And this bond loan is going to have to be paid back plus interest. She said that that's cheap for $500 million. And she has not talked about that since that video 2 years ago. But again, she bit off more than she can chew. And now she's trying to wing it and trying to make it seem like Black Americans need to help foot bills. We don't want to pay back debt that we didn't earn. We're not in Africa. We're not going to Africa. It's not our place. So her being corrupt, thinking that she can just hustle us, is why I expose her. Again, for those that don't know, reading books, she was fired for fraud as an ambassador. If you want to hear that video, I talked about it nine days ago. It has her name in the title and everything, being a false prophet. Check out that video. I have the letter that the African Union submitted to the State Department about why they truly fired her. And so she carried it forward with this ADDI plan to get us somehow footing bills for fake Wakanda cities, and now this Travaco corridor, all these plans, a gold plan talking about cryptocurrency with Odua coin, and all these other plans that she has in the making to try to infringe and impose debt onto Black Americans. And I don't think that that is something that we should want to sign up on. She needs to just give that money back is what she needs to go do. And I don't want us affiliating with a fraudulent person who is already proved to be a fraudulent person to now have us trust this person. If y'all feel like she's worthy, y'all trust her as an African. But don't expect Black Americans to trust this fraudster past ambassador. We're not going.
Value corridor. There's going to be need for the first block. It's going to be the utility corridor. The utility corridor is going to be made up of companies that are doing nothing but, one, laying down water pipelines from east to west. That's all they're going to do. So if you're a company that's laying down water pipelines.
I think that that is hogwash. I think that China already has those contracts. They have already been developing throughout Africa with that railroad initiative, and then some. I think that she is just trying to play us and pretend like China and all the other globalizers, colonizers are not doing their thing in Africa as of now. She's making it seem like if we don't do something, then these things are going to happen. But they are already happening. It's too late. And she knows that. The only thing that she's hopeful to get us to do is be partakers in being debt slaves. That's what she envisions for us. Being debt slaves, footing bills. Ain't nobody want to sign up for that bullshit. Anybody with half a brain wouldn't want to sign up for that bullshit.
If we pull our monies together, you will be working and laying down water pipelines for decades to come. The second one are gas pipelines. The third one is smart grids. The fourth one is fiber optics. You can imagine the many contracts that are going to come out of that. That's just the utility corridor. Then there's the transportation corridor, which is going to involve the building of the railway lines from east to west, the building of highways from east to west, the building of the many airports that are going to come up, the building of bridges. These are all contracts.
These people are not building anything in Africa. They're being assisted by every other nation to help build. So what does she mean? Now they have the expertise to build? It is hogwash. I don't believe none of this. She can say anything just to get your money. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to do that. We're going to do this. Then we're going to do that. And then we're going to do this and do absolutely nothing but take your money. That's what I think she is doing. She has not shown any development since she's been talking about this ADDI. Not one progress report to show what she's done. Only drafted stuff. Only made-believe stuff that look like it came from the cartoon Jetsons. Something to that level. She has not shown nothing since 2019, since she started the ADDI database. Nothing. 19, 21, 2, 3, 6 years almost. Nothing. But she's steadily giving updates or talks about doing this and doing that and doing this and doing that. Only fools would believe somebody like this. Only fools. Only people that's impressed, easily impressed by individuals that are out here being false prophets would believe somebody like an Ericana. And I'm going to keep warning my people until they finally understand what she's about. In my opinion, like I said It's already proven she was fired for fraud. That's easy. So after proving that she's been fired for fraud, why would you ever fix your mind into believing that this woman suddenly has got some get right?
That when you are part of ADDI, you'll be on the table. We have a team of engineers. And
we don't need to be on the table, like being operated on, being sacrificed. We don't need to be on the table. We need to be left out of this whole equation. You have more than enough Africans in Africa. Start in Nigeria. You have more than enough men that need to be working, and get them involved to do some of this so-called building that you want. But again, she's talking specifically to us, creating this narrative, this fantasy for us to believe in something bigger than ourselves. And only fools will go this route to believe a false prophet.
Architects that are already working with organizers of Travaco in the planning phase. And now we go to the cities. Everything you can think of that's needed in a city. Cities are going to be built based on agriculture. There could be citrus cities. There could be cotton cities, all the way from growing cotton, all the way to the textile, to the manufacturing of the fabrics, all the way to the fashion industry. Cities are going to be built for manufacturing of building materials. Cities are going to be built based on jewelry, based on manufacturing of electronics, of batteries. There will be so many cities built. You can now,
just saying anything. My God, it goes on and on what they're going to do. We're going to do this and we're going to do that. Joyce Boggs says, how can we build in another country when we can't build anything in America? We can't come together in America. Bingo. That's my point precisely. If they can't prove to us that they're capable of building in America, how could we believe or want to believe and have hope that they're actually going to be building in Africa? I don't think it's going to happen like that. Now my phone, battery is going out again. Man, I hate this. Let me see. Reading Book says yes. Four Rivers says yes, the Africans should focus on the Caribbeans. They possess African cultures that are similar to Africans, which makes it easier for them to assimilate to Africa. Easy Access, she's lying. Black Americans can build generational wealth in the United States is difficult but possible. Reading Book says she's asking us to help. She's asking us to be the debt slaves is what she's asking us to be. Please like, share, subscribe, comment. My battery is going low again, so unfortunately I won't be able to extend this live past another 5 minutes. I'm going to try to read the rest of this post, maybe come back for a part 2 tomorrow. Four Rivers says, yes, we know not to trust her. She's been accused of stealing funds when getting fired in Africa. Reading Book says, no, we didn't make that bill they owe. Exactly. Easy Access, she does have a lot of good ideas for continental Africans, but it's too broad. One country at a time is better, but all other countries need to get on board, not Black Americans, not sorry. Facts. You can have good ideas. You can say a number of things that sounds good and tingles the ear, but is it the truth? Reading Book says, I'm used to people just talking, never even heard of her. No. On site, this is a no. Oh, I heard that. Reading Books, then you have discernment. And Four Rivers says, yes, her ideas are good for Africa. Her getting herself fired for stealing in Africa shows she wasn't caring about helping them. Exactly. And that's what it's just like Afridamus has said in the beginning of the video, where Africans are going to be tribalistic for the most part, and they will stab you in the back. We have a real live one on our hook. That is this Dr. Ericana. She's not trustworthy. Before my phone dies, I'm going to thank everybody for watching. If you have not yet, please like and share the video. Today is Friday. I will be back with a part 2 tomorrow pertaining to this Dr. Ericana on other parts of this video that I did not play yet in other videos pertaining to the fakeness of Pan-Africanism and how it's detrimental to Black Americans believing in it. Again, living on fumes of lies and fantasies is not going to help us as a people, but bankrupt you and consume you and spit you out. And that's what she would like us to have happen to us. She is not our prophet. She is not a prophetess. She is not of God. She is a wolf in sheep clothing, and everything is talking about this so-called African diaspora. And she wants to emphasize the American, Black Americans and all that, because she wants us to be debts, slaves. And I say no to that. Pay back your debt, give back that money that you borrowed, and stop lying to us. If you can't get the Africans on board to do what they're supposed to do, don't expect us to replace them and do what they refuse to do. That's not our duty. We're not slaves any longer, and we don't want to be. Okay? I don't know why Afridamus changed, but yes, he did. And yeah, I'll be back tomorrow, you guys, or I might be back later if I let my phone charge. But yeah, I was about to get to the good part of the video, and the phone is about to die. But thank y'all for coming through. If you have not yet, please like and share the video, and bless up.